He gave half a burger to a stray and it changed both their lives forever. It was supposed to be just another rainy shift. Noah, soaked to the bone and 2 hours past his last meal, had one thing on his mind: surviving the night. His stomach growled as he tore open the greasy paper bag beneath a broken bus shelter. The scent of warm fries and soggy burger was the closest thing he'd had to comfort all day. But then he heard it, a sound softer than the rain, a whimper. Turning his head, he saw something that made him forget the cold. A dog, barely more than skin and bone, lay curled in the alley shadows. A German shepherd with eyes that didn't beg. They waited. Noah looked at his meal, looked back at the dog, and tore the burger in half. He didn't know it yet, but that choice would rewrite both their destinies. This isn't just a story about a boy and a dog. It's about loyalty, sacrifice, and the kind of bond that only forms when you've both lost everything, but still choose to trust. Stay with us, because what began with half a meal became a full-circle miracle. Rain had a way of making the city forget itself. The storefronts blurred behind silver sheets. Neon signs bled down wet pavement like distant memories, and every passing car sent another wave of freezing water into the gutters. Noah Parker leaned over the handlebars of his rusted delivery bike, his hoodie soaked straight through, the sleeves clinging to his arms like ice-wrapped bandages. The wind knifed through every threadbare layer he owned, but he didn't slow down. There was no point. Every push of the pedals sent a fresh squelch from his shoes, wet socks, rubbing against skin already rubbed raw. His legs ached, his knuckles were numb, and his stomach hadn't stopped growling since noon. But the order slips didn't care, and neither did the clock. He had one more drop to make, and then maybe, he'd get to eat something someone else had thrown away. His breath fogged the air in short, sharp bursts as he rounded the corner onto Parkhurst Avenue, passing rows of shuttered shops and cracked brick buildings that hadn't seen fresh paint in years. This part of the city didn't pretend to shine. It let itself rot in peace. By the time Noah rolled up to the fast food joint where he worked, where they let him deliver, the sky was already closing in with night. The rain had eased into a slow, steady drizzle, but the cold stuck to his bones like mold to damp wood. The manager stood just outside the back door, arms crossed, face lit by the red glow of a flickering "open" sign. He didn't say much. He never did. "Good job, kid," the man muttered, tossing Noah a greasy paper bag like it was a bone. "Leftover meal. Don't say I never gave you anything." Noah caught it with both hands, nodding once, not bothering to force a smile. "Thanks," he mumbled, and meant it. The door slammed behind him with a hollow finality. That was it. No good night. No stay warm. Just food that would have been trashed if he didn't eat it first. He tucked the paper bag under his hoodie like it was treasure, because tonight it was. He climbed back onto his bike, his hands trembling slightly on the handlebars, and started pedaling toward the only place he could think to go. A busted old bus shelter 4 blocks away. It wasn't home, but it had a roof. Half of one, at least. As he rode, his mind drifted, not because he wanted it to, but because he had to. Anything to escape the hunger in his gut and the way the rain felt like glass slicing through his sleeves. He thought of the orphanage, the place where he technically belonged. A squat, gray building with too many rules and not enough warmth. The caretakers weren't cruel, but they weren't kind either. They were efficient, cold, distant. Beds were lined up like hospital cots. Dinner was a clock-in, clock-out process. No one asked how your day was. They only asked if you made curfew. Noah had stopped expecting more a long time ago. The bus shelter came into view at the end of the block, hunched beneath a flickering street lamp like a forgotten thing. One side of the roof had caved in from a fallen branch last winter, but the other still offered enough cover to sit and pretend the world wasn't falling apart. He parked his bike beside the bench, wiped the rain from his eyes with the sleeve of his hoodie, and dropped down onto the cold metal seat. The paper bag crinkled in his lap. He sat there for a moment, just breathing, listening to the soft tick of raindrops on the plexiglass walls. The world was quieter here, not peaceful, just quieter. Finally, with fingers stiff and shaking, he opened the bag. Inside was a cold cheeseburger and a half-crushed packet of fries. The smell alone nearly made him cry. Not because it was good, because it was food. Because it meant he'd made it through another shift. Because for tonight, he wouldn't go to sleep with nothing in his stomach. He reached for the burger, lips already parting, the ache in his ribs tightening with anticipation. But just as his fingers touched the wrapper, a sound. Soft, barely there, a whimper. Noah froze. It wasn't the wind, wasn't a bird, wasn't traffic. He knew those sounds, lived by them. This was different. A cry, weak, fragile. Somewhere close. His head turned slowly toward the alley just across the street. The shadows inside moved like liquid under the broken yellow light, puddles rippling in the breeze. The sound came again. A part of him wanted to ignore it. He was tired, starving. It wasn't his problem. Probably just a stray cat or a plastic bag caught on something sharp. But another part one he didn't like admitting was still alive inside him, tightened in his chest. Noah sighed, cursed under his breath, and stood up. He tucked the bag under his hoodie, shielding it from the drizzle. Then, with the weariness of someone 3 times his age, he stepped into the street and toward the sound that was about to change his life. The rain had softened into a mist, drifting like breath through the narrow alleyways. The city held its breath. Noah stepped off the curb slowly, his worn-out sneakers sending ripples through puddles that mirrored a broken world. The bag of food stayed tucked under his hoodie, still warm, still precious, but the sound he'd heard wouldn't let go. It came again. A whimper, not sharp, not pleading, just fading. He moved down the alley, cautious, squinting into the dim yellow wash of a faulty street lamp overhead. Trash bins lined the brick wall to his left. Torn posters curled off the surface like skin peeling from old wounds. The scent of wet concrete, rotting food, and motor oil clung to everything. He paused, adjusted his eyes, and then he saw it. At first it looked like a heap of dark cloth discarded near the wall, just another forgotten thing in a city full of them. But then it moved. Barely. A twitch. A tremble. Noah took a tentative step closer, heart thudding. Rainwater dripped from a bent gutter above, tapping a slow rhythm on the ground beside the figure. The shadows parted just enough for the truth to settle in. A dog. Big, or once big. Now just bones under soaked fur. A German shepherd, by the shape of its ears and the outline of a noble build that hunger hadn't yet destroyed. Its coat was matted and dark with mud, and its sides heaved with shallow breath. The dog was curled tight against the wall, tail tucked, head lowered, but its eyes. Noah had seen pain before, in mirrors, in the eyes of the other kids at the orphanage, in his own reflection when he hadn't eaten for 2 days and still went to school like nothing was wrong. But this was something else. The dog's eyes were sunken, glassy, and wide with that kind of fear that came after the world had already broken you once, maybe twice. Not a fight or flight fear, but a fear that no one would ever come back for you. He crouched down slowly, the plastic bag rustling under his hoodie. The dog didn't move, didn't growl, just watched. "Hey," Noah whispered, as if raising his voice might shatter something fragile in the air. "You okay?" It was a stupid question. He could see the answer written in the animal's body, the trembling, the protruding ribs, the dried blood on its front paw. The dog blinked. That was all. Noah stayed there, crouched in the alley, water dripping from his hair, breath misting in the space between them. He glanced down at the paper bag still warm against his chest. He was starving. He hadn't eaten all day. But his hands moved before his brain finished arguing. He slid the bag out and sat down on the cold, wet pavement, cross-legged, equal. He opened the top, reached in, and pulled out the burger, still warm in its crumpled wrapper. Noah stared at it. His stomach twisted hard. His fingers trembled, but then he tore it in half. He unwrapped one side, broke a piece off, and gently placed it about a foot in front of the dog, close enough to smell, far enough not to threaten. The dog didn't react. For a heartbeat, nothing moved but the rain. Then, slowly, it lifted its head. Noah's breath caught in his throat. The dog's nostrils twitched. Its body remained curled, but its front paw stretched forward, one shaky inch at a time. It leaned in, sniffed the air, then lunged. The burger piece vanished in a blur of teeth and tongue. The dog gulped it down, its body hunching protectively over the food, even though there was no one else there to steal it. It looked up at Noah again, eyes wider now, a little brighter, expectant. Noah let out a short, shaky laugh. Barely a sound, more of a release. "Yeah," he said softly, breaking off another piece. "I know the feeling." He set it down. The dog ate again, slower this time. Less panic, less fear. The tremble in its limbs didn't stop, but something shifted in the space between them. Not trust, not yet, but something like permission. Noah sat there as the dog finished the second piece, then looked at him, not begging, not barking, just watching. That unspoken look dogs give when they don't have words, just eyes. The boy exhaled, shaking his head. "What happened to you, huh?" The dog didn't answer, but the silence felt like it understood. Above them, the street lamp flickered again, casting pale gold across the wet ground. The alley was still, the storm now just a memory hanging in the air. Noah didn't try to pet the dog. He knew better. He just sat there, letting his side grow numb against the brick wall, the cold soaking into his jeans. Eventually, the dog rested its head on its paws again, not curled up tight this time, but stretched slightly toward him. The burger was gone. So were the fries. But the loneliness felt lighter somehow. A minute passed, then another. Finally, Noah stood up, joints stiff from the cold. The dog didn't flinch. Noah didn't say goodbye. He just nodded once, as if to seal a pact that neither had asked for but both needed. He turned and walked back to the bus stop, the empty bag clutched in his hand. Behind him the alley remained silent, but 2 sets of footprints had been left in the wet dirt. Noah sat back down at the bus stop, water dripping steadily from his hood, trailing across the bench in quiet taps. The burger was gone now, at least the half he had given. The other half rested, still cradled in its damp wrapper in his lap. His stomach groaned again like a hollow drum beat echoing through his insides. He'd eaten nothing all day. Nothing yesterday either, unless you counted half a granola bar he found in his delivery bag's side pocket. And yet, he couldn't bring himself to eat. The taste of hunger wasn't just in his mouth anymore. It was in the rain-soaked dog curled back in the alley, ribs jutting out like branches under torn bark. He looked down at the piece still in his lap. The burger was lukewarm now. The bun was soggy, the cheese rubbery, but it was still food. And in the world Noah lived in, food was gold. It was permission to go on. But so was kindness. He stood again, slowly, tired legs dragging against cold pavement. The drizzle had picked up, painting the night with a fine mist that blurred lights and dulled edges. The city felt quieter somehow, as if waiting. When he reached the alley, the German shepherd was still there, lying against the brick wall. But this time, the dog's head was up, watching. The moment their eyes met, Noah felt something tighten in his chest. It wasn't fear. It wasn't pity either. It was something harder to name, a kind of recognition. He knelt again, unfolding the last piece of his burger and holding it gently in his hand. The dog didn't lunge this time, didn't snatch. Instead, it waited. Noah hesitated, then slowly extended his arm. The dog stretched its neck forward, nostrils twitching, and took the food not like a stray, but like a dog remembering it was once loved. Its teeth brushed against Noah's fingers. Not hard, not threatening, just a momentary touch, like it was learning to trust again, one bite at a time. Noah smiled to himself, more bitter than sweet. "I should have eaten it," he murmured, "but you looked worse off." The dog licked its lips, chewing slower now. Its ears twitched. Its gaze never left Noah's face. For a long beat, neither of them moved. Rain pattered against the trash bins and hissed off concrete, but the moment inside the alley felt suspended. Noah sat down again, this time closer. Not touching, not rushing, just present. "You've been out here a while, huh?" he asked quietly. "Yeah, me too, in a way." The dog blinked slowly, its breathing steadier now. Its body had stopped shaking. The air between them was still cool, but the silence had changed. It wasn't empty anymore. Noah leaned his head back against the wall, letting the cold soak through the back of his hoodie. His knees were soaked, his hands raw. But it didn't matter right now. The city passed behind them. Cars hissed along the road. Somewhere, someone shouted at a cab. A siren wailed a few streets away, but it all felt like it belonged to a different world. Here, in this narrow stretch of shadow and silence, was something else entirely. Something fragile. Something quietly sacred. The dog shifted again, laying its head on its front paws, but now its body stretched ever so slightly toward him, just a few inches. A gesture not of desperation, but of willingness. Noah looked down at his hand. The fingers still holding the empty wrapper, slick with grease and rain. He crumpled it quietly, set it beside him. "Guess you're not scared of me anymore?" he said. The dog didn't wag its tail, didn't make a sound, but it didn't look away either. And somehow that meant more. Noah let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. It fogged in front of him like a passing ghost. He knew this wouldn't change everything. He was still broke, still alone, still 15, and mostly invisible to the world. But tonight, someone had looked at him like he mattered, not for what he could deliver, not for being the orphan kid, just for being there. A look passed between them, one that didn't need words. Noah didn't know the dog's name, didn't know its story, didn't know who had left it or why. But in that moment, under flickering light and steady drizzle, they both understood one thing with aching clarity. They were no longer the only ones. The next night the rain had stopped, but the cold remained. Noah's hoodie was still damp from where it hadn't dried properly, and the soles of his shoes peeled slightly at the edges, each step letting in the memory of yesterday's storm. His breath fogged in front of him, hanging in the air before vanishing, like it never existed. He was tired, not just the kind of tired that settled in your muscles after pedaling a bike for hours, but the kind that curled itself around your ribs, the exhaustion that came from never quite belonging anywhere. He didn't tell anyone where he was going after work. Not the manager, not the other delivery kids who mostly ignored him. Just rode. And when he turned onto the alley street, the one lined with broken glass, trash bins, and silence, his chest tightened without warning. The alley looked the same, too much the same. He slid off his bike and let it lean against the same cracked wall. The faint yellow glow from the street lamp flickered above like a tired eye trying to stay open. Puddles shimmered with city light. The distant sound of a train echoed through the buildings. But the space where the dog had been? Empty. Noah stood still for a moment, blinking, half hoping he'd missed something. That maybe Rex he'd started thinking of him by that name was curled up behind one of the trash bins again, tucked into the shadows like the night before. But he wasn't. No paw prints, no half-eaten wrapper, no trace of matted fur or shivering limbs. Just the alley, quiet as it had always been. Noah stepped forward, searching with his eyes, then his voice. "Hey," he called softly. "You still here?" Nothing. He waited, counted slowly to 10. Still nothing. The space that had felt like a secret sanctuary last night now pressed against his chest like it was closing in. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was final. Maybe he'd scared the dog off. Maybe someone else had found him. Maybe the cold had been too much. Maybe... He shook his head, angry at himself for caring this much. It had only been one night, one burger, one moment. It wasn't like the dog was his. He didn't even know if it had a name or where it had come from, but still, that look, that moment of quiet, wordless understanding, it hadn't felt like nothing. Noah let out a long breath and turned to leave. He grabbed his bike by the handlebars, his fingers red with cold. "Guess you moved on, huh?" he muttered. He didn't blame the dog. Survival meant moving, hiding, trusting no one. He knew the rules. He pushed off the curb and began pedaling slowly, head down, the tires hissing over slick asphalt. Streetlights drifted past like ghosts. His breath caught in his throat, not from cold this time, but from a disappointment he didn't want to name. But then he felt it. Not saw, not heard, felt. A presence. That unshakable sense when you're not alone. When someone or something is watching you. Not like prey, not like threat, but like gravity. Something pulling your awareness to the space behind you. He coasted to a stop and glanced over his shoulder. Nothing. The street behind him was empty, storefronts dark, only the occasional flicker of neon signs from a closed pawn shop or liquor store. Still, the feeling stayed, that sense of not being quite alone. He started riding again, slower this time. Another block, another corner turned, and then at the edge of a storefront window, just out of the circle of light. Movement. Something slipped between two trash bins. A blur, a flick of a tail. Noah braked hard, tires skidding slightly on the damp road. He turned again. This time he saw him. The dog. A few yards back. Standing still. Head tilted. Eyes locked on him. Noah blinked. "Rex?" The dog didn't move, didn't bark, just stood there, as if he'd been following all along. As if he had known exactly where Noah was going and had chosen to stay out of reach. Until now. Noah let out a small, stunned laugh. "You've been stalking me?" Still no sound. But something about the way the dog shifted on his feet, just the slightest sway forward, told him, yes. Yes, I was there. Yes, I never left. Noah lowered his voice. "You could have said something." The dog took a step closer, then another, not rushing, not begging, just following. Noah grinned, something warm pushing against the cold in his chest. "All right then," he said. "I guess this is your decision too." He turned back toward the street, pedaled slowly. Behind him, paws clicked softly against concrete. The rhythm fell into sync without either of them trying. Noah didn't look back this time. He didn't have to. The dog was following. Not because he was told to, not because he had nowhere else to go, but because something invisible, something impossible, had started between them, on a night when both of them had shared what little they had. Not a leash, not ownership, but a choice. The street was quiet when Noah rolled up to the back door of the fast food joint. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like flies stuck in old neon tubes. The metal handle of the delivery bike clinked as he leaned it against the dumpster wall, and the smell of fryer grease and burned patties hung thick in the air. Rex padded a few steps behind him, silent and steady. Noah turned, crouching beside the dog. "All right, this is where I work," he whispered, brushing a raindrop off the tip of Rex's nose. "Smells better than it actually is, trust me." Rex sat on his haunches, head tilted just slightly, not confused, not anxious, just waiting, always waiting. Noah glanced at the door, then back at the dog. "I need you to stay here, okay? Just hang tight. No barking, no biting the manager. He's already one broken shift away from firing me." Rex blinked. No wag, no growl, just stillness. "I mean it," Noah added, a smile tugging at his lips. "Be cool." He gave the dog one last glance before pushing open the heavy back door. It slammed shut behind him with the usual metallic clank. And just like that, Rex was gone from sight, but not from thought. Inside, the kitchen was hot, greasy, loud clattering pans, shouting orders, timers beeping like alarms in a war zone. Noah pulled on his crumpled work shirt over his hoodie and tied his apron too tight just to feel something around his ribs. His hands moved on autopilot packing bags, grabbing sauces, checking orders, hauling deliveries to and from the bike like clockwork. But his mind kept drifting. Was Rex still there? He pictured the dog sitting just outside the alley's curve, watching the back door. Ears up, not moving, not causing trouble, just there. And somehow that thought made everything else bearable. By midnight, the dinner rush had long faded, replaced by the occasional drunk order or night shift regular. The manager had disappeared into the office, the fryers hissed low, and Noah finally clocked out, hands slick with grease, fingers aching, stomach hollow. He slipped out the back, the night air cold against his sweat-soaked shirt. Rex was there. Same spot, same posture, as if not a second had passed. Noah stared at him for a moment, heart swelling with something dangerously close to belief. "You waited." Rex stood, stretching once, his front legs bowing low. Then he padded forward, ears perked, silent as ever. "You're kinda terrifying, you know that?" Noah said softly, half laughing. "You didn't even whine. I would've." He reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out a small paper pouch, tonight's unofficial bonus, a leftover chicken strip and half a biscuit someone forgot to pick up. He crouched beside Rex and placed the food on the pavement. "It's not much, but it's yours." Rex didn't pounce. He sat down, watched, waited. Only when Noah nodded did the dog lean forward and eat slowly, gently, as if the food didn't matter as much as who it came from. Noah exhaled. "Yeah, I figured you weren't the begging type." They sat there for a few minutes, under the broken light and the hum of distant traffic, sharing the kind of silence that doesn't ask for words. Something had shifted. There was no leash, no command, no tricks. But a rhythm had begun. Rex waited. Noah worked. Rex never begged. He never barked at strangers or chased passing cars. He just stood guard, like a ghost with a heartbeat, invisible to everyone but Noah. Every night it repeated, and every night Noah brought something back. A half-eaten fry, a bite of sandwich, a torn-up hot dog bun. And always Rex accepted it the same way, not as a gift, but as a shared truth. It wasn't charity, it was companionship. Sometimes, between orders, Noah would catch himself glancing toward the alley through the back window. Just a flicker of movement outside the light. Just enough to remind him that someone was there. Someone waiting. Someone that chose to wait for him. One evening, just as Noah stepped out after his shift with a crumpled cheeseburger in hand, he found Rex already lying down, chin resting on his paws, eyes trained on the door like clockwork. "You know," Noah muttered, tossing him a small piece of bun, "I think you're better at showing up than half the people I know." Rex caught it mid-air, then looked at him, not wagging, not begging, just looking. That look again. That steady, solid gaze that said more than words could carry. Noah sat beside him on the curb, sighing, "I never thought I'd have someone to eat with again. Not like this." He tore the burger in half and handed Rex a piece. The dog took it gently. And for the first time in a long time, Noah didn't feel like he was just surviving the night. He felt seen. He felt watched over. And slowly, piece by piece, the rhythm wasn't just a pattern. It was a bond. It wasn't until the third night that Noah really noticed it. Not just the waiting, not just the way the dog followed him after work like a second shadow, never too close, never too far, but the fact that he never left. Noah had stopped looking back after the first couple blocks. He didn't need to anymore. He could feel it, a steady presence, quiet and solid, trailing just behind his right shoulder. Always on the edge of the light. Always there. And for someone like Noah, who had spent most of his life being overlooked, forgotten, or shuffled into places that called themselves home without ever meaning it, that mattered more than he could say. By now it was routine. After his shift, Noah would split whatever scraps he could sneak out tonight, a stale chicken wrap and a crushed muffin, and walk until the city dimmed into quiet. Not toward the orphanage. Not yet. Just far enough to feel like the noise couldn't reach him. Tonight, They found themselves back at the bus shelter, the same broken bench from that first night. Noah dropped onto the seat, letting his backpack slide off his shoulder with a dull thud. The dog, his dog, he was starting to think, sat just in front of him, poised like a statue carved from storm clouds and loyalty. Damp fur clung to lean muscle. The ribs still showed, but the eyes, they were sharper now, less clouded, still guarded but no longer lost. Noah broke the wrap in half and tossed a piece gently. The dog caught it midair, then sat again, waiting. "You're really not going to leave, huh?" Noah asked softly, more to the wind than anything. 3 nights, same street, same kid. The dog tilted his head slightly, as if trying to understand English but not needing to. Noah let the silence settle. It was strange how easy it felt. Sitting there, food between them, no one expecting anything, no instructions, no judgment, no one telling him to be quiet or hurry up or act his age. Just this dog, watching him, listening. Noah leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. His fingers absent-mindedly picked at the edge of the wrapper. "You don't talk much," he said with a crooked smile. "But I guess that's fine. I've done enough talking to walls anyway." The dog blinked, ears twitched once. "You remind me of someone," Noah continued, voice quieter now. "At the last foster home, there was this old guy, never said more than 5 words at dinner, but he always made sure there was a blanket folded at the edge of the couch. Never said it was for me. But it was." He paused. The weight of that memory pressed on his chest for a beat. He hadn't thought about that place in months. "I guess people who say the least sometimes do the most." Another piece of wrap, another silent chew. The dog's tail thumped once, just once. Noah chuckled under his breath. "You do that again, I'm taking it as approval." The dog shifted his weight, inching just a bit closer to the bench. Rain misted in the air like fog, wrapping the shelter in a kind of quiet that made Noah feel like they were the only ones in the world. He stared at the dog, really looked. The shape of his head, the alert rise of his ears, the quiet intelligence behind those deep golden-brown eyes. "You look like you used to belong to someone," Noah said. "A soldier, maybe, or a cop, someone important." He tilted his head, thought for a moment. "You deserve a name." The dog blinked. Noah leaned back on the bench and looked up at the fog-covered sky. "Can't just keep calling you Hey forever." He waited, letting his brain flip through possibilities like pages of a book. Max? Too common. Titan? Too heavy. Buddy? Too soft. And then, quietly, as if the name had been sitting there all along, he said, "Rex." The dog's ears twitched at the sound. Noah smiled. "Yeah, that fits." He leaned forward again, elbows back on his knees. "You don't look like a stray. You look like someone who was trained, who did something that mattered, like someone who got lost and just kept surviving." Rex stared at him, not blinking, not breaking eye contact, like he understood. Noah's throat tightened unexpectedly. He looked down at his hands. They were dirty, cracked, calloused from delivering hot food to people who never looked him in the eye, from holding handlebars through rain and wind, from growing up faster than he should have. "Guess I'm kind of the same," he whispered. The wind rustled the trash near the curb. A car passed in the distance. But inside the shelter, it was still, grounded. Noah looked at Rex again. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you followed me." And for the first time since the night they met, Rex did something new. He stepped forward, slowly, deliberately, and rested his chin on Noah's boot. Not for food, not for warmth, just connection. Noah didn't move for a moment. Then, slowly, he reached out. His hand hovered for a second, unsure, then rested lightly on the dog's head. Rex didn't flinch. Noah smiled again. "Guess we're stuck with each other now, huh?" And that night, for the first time in years, Noah spoke without being interrupted. And Rex listened, the way only someone who's also been broken and still chooses to stay can. The sky was still dark when Noah rolled up to the back of the restaurant. Morning hadn't broken yet, not really, just a dull gray that smeared the horizon, cold and colorless. His breath came out in sharp bursts, fogging the air as he locked his bike to the same rusted railing, hands numb from the wind. Behind him, Rex stopped a few paces back and sat, head high, eyes fixed on the door like it was his post. His ears twitched once at a passing truck, but otherwise he didn't move. He didn't need to be told. He just waited. Noah gave him a small nod. "Won't be long." He pushed open the back door, shoulders hunched from the cold and something heavier. The kitchen smelled like scorched oil and too much bleach. Steam hissed from the fryers. Light bulbs buzzed above with that faint flicker that made everything feel more tired than it already was. And then came the voice, sharp, already angry. "You're late." Noah froze mid-step. The manager stood by the time clock, arms crossed, eyebrows drawn tight. His name was Rich, but no one called him that. Just the guy with the clipboard. 35 going on bitter. He was the kind of man who measured worth in seconds and blamed teenage workers for the weather. Noah swallowed. "Only a couple minutes." "A couple minutes is a sandwich missed, a customer pissed, and a shift thrown off," Rich snapped, walking toward him. "That's 3 nights this week, Parker." "I got caught at a light." "You got caught dragging your feet," the man cut him off. Again. Noah's fingers curled at his sides. "I always make the deliveries. I stay late. You always have excuses." Rich leaned in, his voice lower now, meaner. "And now I hear you've got some stray mutt following you around?" Noah's stomach dropped. Rich smirked at the flicker in his eyes. "Yeah, saw him yesterday. Big, ugly thing sitting by the alley like he owns the place. Customers walk by, they see that? You think they want to order food from the kid with a guard dog? He doesn't bother anyone. I don't care if he sings lullabies, he's bad for business." Noah clenched his jaw, pulse beating fast behind his eyes. He wanted to say Rex had more manners than half the people who walked through the doors, that he didn't bark, didn't bite, didn't beg. He waited, he watched, he protected. But words like that didn't work here, not on men like Rich. They only saw problems. And Noah? He'd been labeled one since the day he was old enough to work. Rich turned away, grabbing a towel and wiping down a spotless counter. "I'll make this real simple. You show up late again, or I see that dog anywhere near this property, you're done." Noah didn't speak. He just nodded, because what else was there to say? He lasted the shift with his head down, hands moving fast through grease-stained wrappers and lukewarm coffee deliveries. He didn't make a sound, didn't take a break, didn't look toward the alley. But he felt it, the weight in his chest, the dull throb in his temples. That familiar ache of being cornered, of knowing the walls around you don't have to be made of bricks to make you feel trapped. He left the building after dark. The air had turned colder, the sky full of thin clouds that hid the stars. Rex was still there, sitting beside the bike like nothing had changed, but everything had. Noah crouched next to him, running a hand through the dog's fur. It was damp, but not shivering like before. Stronger, warmer. "You caused a scene without even barking," Noah said softly. "That's a talent." Rex licked his hand once. Noah sighed, leaning his forehead against Rex's shoulder for a brief second before pulling back. "I'm trying, okay?" he whispered, voice barely audible. "I'm doing everything right. But it's never enough." Rex didn't move, just watched him, listened, stayed. And in that small act, just staying, Noah felt something tighten and loosen at the same time. He mounted his bike, looked back down at Rex, and jerked his head gently. "Come on." The dog fell into step behind him. The alley was darker than usual. The street lamp that usually cast a faint halo over the brick walls was dead tonight. Nothing but a cold stump of metal humming with static silence. Shadows hung heavier between the dumpsters, the kind of darkness that made you hold your breath a little longer. Noah had taken the long way back from work. He didn't know why. Maybe to buy himself time before returning to the orphanage. Maybe just out of habit, this alley had become a strange kind of landmark. It was where he first found Rex, where everything had started to feel less hollow. But something felt wrong tonight. He knew it before he turned the corner. There was laughter, harsh, sharp, the kind of sound that echoed mean, even in the open air. And then a yelp, short, muffled, painful. Noah froze. The bag of leftover fries in his hand crinkled as his grip tightened. He stepped into the alley without thinking. Instinct. Heart pounding now. That's when he saw them. 4 boys. Teenagers. Maybe 16 or 17. Hoodies half-zipped. One of them held a beer bottle. Another had a rock in his hand. Their sneakers scraped the wet pavement as they circled something near the far end of the alley. Rex. The dog was backed against the wall, body low to the ground, one paw lifted slightly, hurt. His ears were pinned, tail tucked, but his eyes stayed on them, watching, calculating. A bottle shattered near his head, sending glass across the ground. Laughter erupted. "Yo, look at him! Mutts like this don't die easy. Think it's a stray or someone's? Don't matter. He's a freaking monster. Look at those eyes." Rex didn't snarl, didn't bark, but he was cornered, and Noah could see it. The stillness before a storm. Noah's voice cut through the noise. "Hey!" The boys turned. He stepped forward without hesitation, shoulders tense, jaw clenched. "What the hell are you doing?" one of them scoffed. "What's it to you, man?" "That dog yours?" another chimed in, tossing a bottle up and down in his hand like it was nothing. Noah moved in between them and Rex, arms spread slightly. He could feel the adrenaline now, his body telling him to run, to back down, but his feet refused to move. "He's not bothering you," he said, voice low. "Just leave him alone." The biggest kid laughed. "Look at this. Stray protecting a stray." The others chuckled behind him. One of them stepped forward, shoving Noah hard. His back slammed against the wall beside Rex with a dull thud, air rushing out of his lungs. Rex growled. It was deep, low, primal. The alley seemed to pause. It wasn't the frightened whimper of a street dog. This sound came from somewhere trained, somewhere earned. The group stiffened. The big one lifted the bottle slightly. "Call your mud off, or I swear—" Rex stepped forward, slow and deliberate. His fur bristled along his spine, shoulders tense, eyes locked like crosshairs. Another step. Then he bared his teeth. A warning. One Noah didn't even know he was capable of. The boys stepped back, suddenly unsure. Rex let out a bark, not loud, not high-pitched, controlled, powerful, and in that one bark, the air shifted. The leader muttered a curse. "Screw this!" They turned, one by one. A few mumbled something under their breath. A bottle clattered to the ground. Then they disappeared down the other end of the alley, fading into the dark, their bravado peeling off with every step. The silence that followed was electric. Noah exhaled, sliding down the wall until he was sitting on the damp ground, knees pulled to his chest. His chest rose and fell like he'd just finished a sprint. Rex stood beside him, his body still rigid, still watching the exit where the boys had fled. Then, slowly, his ears relaxed, his tail lowered, and he turned. Noah met his eyes. "Holy crap," he whispered. "You were trained, weren't you?" Rex didn't answer, of course, but he stepped toward Noah and nudged his arm with his nose as if checking for damage. Noah chuckled, just a breath of sound, but it carried a shaky edge. "I'm okay. You scared them off." Rex settled beside him, pressing his shoulder lightly against Noah's. Not possessive, not protective, just present. Noah reached over and scratched behind his ears. "I don't know who did this to you before," he said softly, "but I'm glad you didn't forget who you were." He looked down at the broken glass near the wall, at the space where the dog had stood without running, without lashing out, just waiting for the moment it mattered. "Me neither," Noah whispered, and they sat there side by side in the dark. Two survivors. One promise. The alley felt colder now. Not because of the wind, it had quieted to a soft hiss between buildings, but because of what had been left behind. Shattered glass, scuffed sneakers marks, the echo of laughter too cruel to be called human. Noah wiped a sleeve across his mouth. His lip was bleeding. The skin just under his eye throbbed where the bigger kid had shoved him into the wall. He tasted rust and rain. His ribs ached with each breath, but it wasn't enough to make him stop walking. Rex walked beside him. Neither of them looked back. Their steps were slow, not because they were unsure, but because some moments, some silences, you don't break with speed. You carry them like you carry pain, gently, without dropping them. The further they got from the alley, the more Noah felt his body start to tremble. Not from fear, from release. The adrenaline that had once burned bright now leaked out of him in quiet waves, leaving only the soreness behind. He limped slightly, but didn't complain. Rex stayed close, his pace matching Noah's stride without needing a command. Noah didn't speak for the first 2 blocks, just breathed. Just listened to the rhythm of paws and wet pavement and the faint hum of distant traffic. And then finally, when the tension in his chest cracked just wide enough, he whispered, "I don't care what they say." Rex's ears twitched. Noah looked down, blinking rain from his lashes. His voice was low, but steady, honest. "I don't care if they think you're dangerous, or broken, or just some mutt who doesn't belong anywhere." He sniffed hard, wiped at his nose with the sleeve of his hoodie. "You waited for me every night. You didn't run when they threw bottles. You stood your ground for me." Rex glanced up. Not a full turn of the head, just a side glance, like he understood the tone even if the words were fog. "You didn't leave me," Noah said. He stopped walking. So did Rex. Noah turned to face him, the light from a nearby storefront casting a faint glow over the sidewalk. His eyes were glassy now. Not quite crying, but close. So I'm not leaving you either. Rex stepped forward and did the one thing that shattered what little composure Noah had left. He nudged his hand, just once, softly. Not begging, not asking, just confirming. That's all it took. Noah dropped to his knees on the sidewalk, not caring about the damp, not caring about the bruises or the grit. He wrapped both arms around Rex's neck, holding on like the world had narrowed to this one point, this one heartbeat beside his own. Rex didn't pull away. He didn't tense. He leaned into him, head pressing against Noah's shoulder, tail giving the slightest, slowest wag. They stayed like that for a long moment, boy and dog, shadow and storm, the kind of stillness that comes not from peace, but from having survived the kind of chaos that strips everything else away. Noah pulled back, wiping his face. He smiled, even though it hurt. "Let's go home," he whispered. It was a lie, technically. He didn't know if the orphanage would still call him theirs if they knew about Rex. He didn't know if the manager at work would give him another shift. He didn't know where the next warm meal would come from. But Rex was beside him, and somehow that made the word home feel less like fiction. They started walking again. No rush, no fear, just forward, past the blinking signs and fogged-up windows, past strangers who didn't know them and probably wouldn't care, past every echo of "you're too much" or "you don't belong." Rex's body brushed against Noah's side like a reminder. "I'm still here." Noah looked up at the night sky. The clouds had started to break, just a little, one or two stars peeking through like tiny promises. He reached down and let his fingers trail lightly through Rex's damp fur as they walked. "Not leaving you," he said again, softer now. And this time, he didn't need Rex to answer. Because some truths don't need words. They just walk beside you. The orphanage wasn't really an orphanage, not in the storybook sense. It was more of a holding space, a place between places, cold tile floors, gray walls, donated furniture that never matched. A building that held kids like file folders, names, ages, behavioral notes until someone else took them, or until they aged out and disappeared into the cracks of the city. Noah had been there longer than most. Not because no one wanted him, but because he stopped letting them try. Tonight, the hallways were quiet, bathed in blue light from the emergency lamps. Most of the younger kids were already asleep, huddled beneath thin blankets in shared dorm rooms. The older ones, like Noah, had slightly more privacy. A small room, a single bed, a shared bathroom, nothing more. He crept through the side gate just after midnight, pulling his bike gently behind him so it wouldn't rattle. The back door clicked softly as he unlocked it with the pin he wasn't supposed to know. Shoes soaked, pants torn, bruises blooming along his ribs. And Rex padded along right behind him, low, silent. He shouldn't have brought him, he knew that. But after what happened in the alley, the idea of leaving Rex alone again felt like betrayal. And besides, something had shifted between them. A promise, maybe, or something older than that. They slipped inside, past the kitchen, past the rows of lockers, past the long hall that smelled faintly of antiseptic and old dreams. Noah's door creaked on its hinge as he opened it, flinching instinctively. Nothing stirred. He let Rex in first, closing the door behind him. The room was barely big enough for a bed, a nightstand, and a place to put his backpack. But Rex didn't care. He circled twice on the floor and lay down with a quiet sigh, head on paws, eyes on Noah. Noah dropped his bag by the door, peeled off his damp hoodie, and sat on the edge of the bed. His whole body ached, but not from work, not even from the fight, from the weight of almost losing something that finally made him feel seen. He looked down at Rex and whispered, "Just tonight, okay? Just until I figure something out." Rex didn't move, didn't have to. He was already home. The voice came at sunrise, sharp, authority sharpened by caffeine and years of policy. "Noah Parker!" His eyes flew open. A second later, the door slammed against the wall, and Ms. Halbridge, the head caretaker, stood in the doorway, arms crossed, face pinched, lips pursed in that way she had perfected. "What," she hissed, "is that doing here?" Noah sat up fast, but Rex was already on his feet, placing himself between Noah and the woman. No growl, no bark, just present, guarding. "He's not hurting anyone," Noah said quickly, standing too. "He just followed me back. He's quiet, I swear." "This is not a shelter for animals," she snapped. "You know the rules. No pets, no strays, no exceptions." "He's not a stray," Noah said, more force in his voice than he meant. He's mine." Ms. Halbridge stepped inside, eyes blazing. "Then take your dog and leave, because he's not staying here. And if you think we're going to risk some mangy, unvaccinated, unpredictable animal around the other children—" "He's not dangerous," Noah shouted, fists clenched. "He's the only thing in my life that isn't." The silence after those words was thick and electric. Even Rex lowered his head slightly, as if reading the heat in Noah's voice and choosing stillness. Ms. Halbridge narrowed her eyes, voice quieter now. "Then you have a decision to make." Noah's breath caught. Her words dropped like cold water. "The dog goes, or you do." He blinked. "You're serious?" "I am always serious, Mr. Parker. You know how many kids want this bed, this roof, these walls? You want to throw that away for some filthy animal you dragged in off the street?" Noah looked down at Rex. The dog's eyes met his, calm, steady, loyal, in a way that felt ancient. In that gaze, he saw every moment that mattered. The first time Rex had waited for him. The time he didn't flinch when the bottle flew. The way he stood between Noah and danger, not with violence, but with presence. Noah knew the answer before his heart even finished breaking. He knelt down beside Rex, hand slipping into the thick fur at his neck. When he looked up again, his voice was soft but unshakable. "I choose him." A flicker of something passed across Ms. Halbridge's face. Surprise, maybe, or pity. Or maybe it was the sudden recognition that this boy, this quiet, scrappy, stubborn boy, had already found what the system never gave him: family. She stepped back, pointing at the door. "Then get out." Noah nodded once. Didn't argue. Didn't beg. He packed his bag in 2 minutes flat. It wasn't hard when all you owned could fit inside something that used to be a school backpack. As he turned to leave, Rex at his side, he paused at the doorway, not to look back, but to take one last breath inside the only place that ever pretended to be home. Then he stepped into the hallway. No goodbye, just the sound of paws on linoleum following him into whatever came next. The front steps of the orphanage never felt this long before. Each one groaned under Noah's shoes as he descended, his duffel slung over one shoulder, half-zipped, threads coming loose. The morning air hit like a slap, sharp, unfiltered, no walls left to hold back the wind. Dew clung to the railing, the grass, the city itself. But all Noah could see was Rex, waiting just beyond the gate. The dog stood still, framed against the rusted chain link like something sculpted from shadow and rain. His coat was soaked, water dripping from the tips of his ears, matting his fur to the strong curve of his ribs. His paws were muddy. A fresh scrape marred the side of his leg, thin but red. He looked like everything the world had given up on. And yet, he didn't blink, didn't shiver. He just stood there, eyes locked on Noah like he'd known all along, like he trusted Noah to come. Noah's breath caught in his throat. He stepped through the gate, and Rex took one step forward in response, tail low, uncertain, but wagging just once. Noah dropped his bag. He knelt in the dirt, jeans immediately damp, and met Rex eye to eye. Up close, the dog looked worse. Bruises beneath the fur, skin pulled tight over bone. His body bore the scars of weeks, maybe months on the street, but his eyes were clear, focused, full of a trust that shouldn't exist. Noah's hands trembled as he reached out, gently touching behind Rex's ears. The dog leaned into the contact with a quiet, exhausted sigh, like the world had finally stopped spinning long enough to rest. "You waited," Noah whispered. Rex didn't move. Didn't need to. Noah looked past him for a moment, back at the building now behind him, the place that had never really been his. It loomed gray in the light, windows square and cold. The woman behind the door hadn't come out again. Didn't have to. She'd made her choice. And now he had too. He looked back down at Rex, soaking wet, standing still, willing to follow him anywhere. Noah's voice broke in his throat, but the words still came. "I choose you." Rex's ears twitched. He blinked, slow and steady. "I don't care if it means sleeping outside. I don't care if I get fired or if no one understands," Noah said, firmer now. "You never left me, so I'm not leaving you." The wind pushed through the trees above them, scattering a few brittle leaves across the sidewalk. Somewhere in the city a horn blared. Life kept moving. But here, this moment stood still, and Rex leaned forward, pressing his head into Noah's chest. Not for food, not for comfort, just because. Noah wrapped his arms around the dog's neck, forehead resting against damp fur. No plan, no map, just this choice, this loyalty, this truth. They stood together in the chill morning, silence stitched between heartbeats, and when Noah finally rose, pulling the duffel back over his shoulder, Rex fell into step beside him, limping slightly, but walking without hesitation. They didn't look back. There was nothing left to look back for. They crossed the neighborhood like shadows, boy and dog, bruised but upright, tired but still walking. The sidewalk beneath them didn't care about their stories, but the sky above was beginning to shift. Clouds parted ever so slightly, enough for a sliver of light to find them. Not warm, but enough. As they neared the intersection at the edge of the block, Noah glanced down. "Looks like it's just us now," he murmured. Rex looked up with those deep, knowing eyes. Noah offered a half smile. "And that's enough." The city after midnight was a different kind of wilderness. No lights in the windows, no sounds of life, just wind slipping through rusted alley grates and the occasional flicker of traffic signals that blinked on even when no one was watching. Noah walked with his hands deep in the pockets of his hoodie, head down against the wind. The duffel bag strap bit into his shoulder. It was heavier now, not from weight, but from meaning, from the reality of what he'd just left behind. Beside him, Rex walked silently. He didn't pull ahead, didn't fall behind. Every so often, his flank would brush lightly against Noah's leg, as if reminding him, "I'm here, I'm still here." They passed shuttered stores and graffiti-covered bus benches, a bakery with metal grates drawn down, and the lingering scent of burnt flour. A woman across the street pushed a shopping cart full of cans, muttering to herself as she moved like a ghost through the fog. Noah didn't know where they were going. He didn't even pretend to. He just walked. They tried the park first. The benches were soaked, and the trees offered little cover. Rex sniffed a trash can and backed away with a soft grunt. A group of teenagers smoked beneath the jungle gym, laughing too loudly for a space so empty. Noah turned before they could see him. Then the train station locked. Then the laundromat lit, but closed. Every door said the same thing in different ways. Not for you. By the time they reached the edge of the warehouse district, Noah's socks were soaked through again. The chill had settled into his spine, deep and biting, like it wanted to stay. He stopped under a metal awning where a neon sign blinked open over a payday loan office that clearly wasn't. The flickering letters cast pink light over the sidewalk, pooling around Rex's paws like spilled watercolor. Noah leaned against the wall, slid down until he was sitting with his knees pulled up. Rex sat beside him, close enough to feel. For a while they just sat like that, breathing in tandem. Wind snaked down the alleyways like whispers. The city didn't speak, but it watched. Noah exhaled. His words came out in a cloud. "We'll figure it out," he said quietly. Rex turned his head slightly. "Somehow," Noah added. It wasn't a promise. It was a vow stitched with uncertainty, but real all the same. He looked down at Rex, who now had his chin resting on Noah's knee. The dog's eyes were heavy with exhaustion, but calm, steady, unmoved by fear. That look again, the one that said, "I've been through worse. I'll go wherever you go." Noah swallowed hard, feeling the ache in his ribs, the sting in his scraped palms, the slow rumble of a stomach too long ignored. "You should have picked someone easier," he whispered. "Someone with a house, a warm bed. Not a kid who can barely keep a job and just got kicked out of the only place stupid enough to take him in." Rex didn't move, didn't blink, only breathed and stayed. And somehow that did more than any speech ever could. Noah tilted his head back, letting the cold drizzle land on his face. He closed his eyes for a moment and tried to picture a version of the world where things didn't always break, where people stayed, where choosing someone didn't mean giving up everything else. But even with the cold pressing into his skin and the ache behind his eyes, he didn't regret it. He'd made his choice, and Rex had made his. They sat there until the wind picked up and forced them to keep moving. Noah rose slowly, brushing off his jeans. He looked down. "You ready?" Rex stood immediately, tail low, but wagging once. Together they stepped back into the street, walking deeper into the night. No destination, no instructions, just forward. By the time they found the park, it was well past 2 in the morning. The streetlights flickered as if too tired to keep burning. The swings hung still in the wind, chains creaking every so often like tired sighs. The grass was damp, spongy beneath their feet, and the smell of rain still lingered in the dirt. Noah stopped beside a bench and dropped his duffel bag with a dull thud. He rolled his shoulders, trying to ease the weight of the past 12 hours off his spine, but the kind of weight he carried didn't come off with a shrug. Rex stood beside him, head low, ears twitching. "You think this'll do?" Noah asked, voice flat, empty. Rex didn't respond, but he turned a slow circle near the base of a tree and finally lay down. Not curled up like before, just stretched out, tired. His body low to the ground like he was trying to disappear into it. Noah collapsed onto the bench, It was slick with dew, cold enough to jolt the breath from his lungs. He sat forward anyway, elbows on knees, trying to stay small, stay warm, stay invisible. His stomach growled again. He'd forgotten to be hungry earlier, too focused on walking, on finding shelter, on just keeping moving. But now, with everything still and silent, it hit him like a punch. He unzipped the front pocket of his duffel and fished around fingers, finding only a crumpled receipt, a cracked granola bar wrapper, and a coin. Just one. The food was gone. All of it. Noah dropped his head into his hands, fingers digging into his scalp. They'd been walking since sunset, searching for somewhere that didn't lock them out or threaten to call the cops. Somewhere dry. Somewhere safe. This was the best they could do. Rex shifted in the grass, letting out a slow, steady breath. And that's when Noah noticed it. The limp. It wasn't obvious at first. Rex was too good at hiding pain. But now that they weren't moving, the way he'd favored his left leg on the last few steps came back like a slow echo, the way he hadn't laid down evenly, the way he kept licking at the joint near his shoulder. Noah stood up fast, kneeling beside him. "Hey," he said, brushing aside fur to look. The leg was raw scraped through and red, probably from the alley, or the walking, or both. Maybe it had always been there, and Noah just hadn't noticed, because Rex had refused to show it. "You're hurt," he murmured, voice cracking. Rex didn't whine, just looked at him with those same steady eyes as if to say, "It's fine. I've had worse. Keep going." But Noah couldn't. He sat back down beside him in the grass, ignoring the wet that seeped into his jeans. "This isn't working," he whispered. "I don't have money. I don't have food. I can't even get you something to wrap that with." Rex rested his head on his paws, eyes never leaving Noah's face. Noah wiped at his own with the sleeve of his hoodie. "I thought I could do this. Be strong. Be the guy who makes it through. But—" the words caught in his throat. "I'm just a kid." It was the kind of confession that felt too heavy to say out loud, the kind you hide behind sarcasm and shrugs and late-night silence. But out here, under this weak excuse for shelter, with only a wounded dog beside him, there was no point pretending any more. Rex shifted again, not much, just enough to inch closer until his paw touched Noah's shoe. That single point of contact did something Noah couldn't explain, a warmth in the middle of the cold, a presence that said, "Even if you're breaking, I'm still here." And that was enough to keep breathing. At least for now. They sat like that until the hum of an approaching golf cart broke the quiet. The headlights hit them hard, white beams slicing across the park. A voice followed. "Hey! You can't sleep here!" Noah winced and stood up fast, holding a hand to shield his eyes. A security guard stepped out of the cart, flashlight already raised. "I said move along." "We're just resting," Noah tried, stepping in front of Rex instinctively. "We're not hurting anything." The guard shook his head. "Park closes at midnight. You want to sleep, you do it somewhere legal." "Where?" Noah said before he could stop himself. "You want a list of benches or just the ones with less broken glass?" The guard didn't laugh, just pointed toward the sidewalk. "Out!" Noah bent down and patted Rex's side gently. "Come on, buddy." Rex stood with a grunt, favoring his injured leg again. The guard didn't miss it. His face softened slightly, but not enough to offer help. They walked out of the park under the cold gaze of halogen bulbs. Noah didn't say a word, Neither did Rex. The sound of their footsteps, wet, slow, tired, was the only answer the night deserved. They found the warehouse just before dawn. It loomed at the edge of a forgotten industrial strip, sagging like the skeleton of a building that had long given up pretending to be useful. Broken windows grinned down at the street like crooked teeth. A rusted sign dangled from one hinge, the words "Carton Storage," barely legible beneath graffiti and grime. Noah stood across the street, hands in his pockets, shoulders hunched, his breath misted in the frozen air, each exhale sharp in his lungs. Rex limped beside him, quiet, alert, eyes scanning the building. "It's something," Noah muttered. "Not a home, not even a shelter, really, but something." They crossed the street in silence, boots crunching over gravel and broken glass. The warehouse door had long since been kicked in, bent backward like the mouth of a cave. Noah stepped over the threshold cautiously, eyes adjusting to the gloom. Inside, it was cavernous and hollow. Concrete floors, exposed beams, a rank smell of mildew and old oil. Thin strips of pale morning light spilled in through the cracks in the high windows, dust swirling in lazy spirals. Rex sniffed the air, ears twitching. Noah moved quietly toward a stack of wooden crates in the far corner. It wasn't shelter exactly, but it blocked some of the wind, and the shadows there ran deeper. Just as he reached it, he heard a voice, low, slurred, too close. "You lost, kid?" Noah spun around. A man stood near one of the support beams, barely visible in the gloom. Mid-40s, maybe older, with a thick jacket too big for his frame, and eyes that didn't blink often enough. Behind him, another figure shifted, smaller, younger, wrapped in a thin blanket, coughing into his sleeve. Noah raised his hand slightly. "Didn't know it was taken." The man stepped closer, his boots dragging across the concrete. "It is." Rex moved in front of Noah without being told, silent, staring. The man looked down at him. "That yours?" "Yeah." "Mean-looking thing." "He's not—" Noah stopped. "He won't bother you if you don't bother us." Another cough echoed from the dark. The man narrowed his eyes. "People get hurt in places like this. People like you." Noah's mouth was dry. "I just need a place to rest." The man didn't answer. He looked at Rex again, then back at Noah. Something passed across his face, something harder to name than anger or suspicion. Desperation, maybe. Hunger that had turned inward. "I said it's taken." Noah didn't argue. He stepped back slowly, nudging Rex with his leg. "We're leaving." He didn't wait for a response, just turned and walked. The cold outside hit like a slap, but at least it was honest. Back under the washed-out sky, Noah let out a long breath. Rex fell into step beside him again, limping worse now, but still moving. They didn't speak. Didn't have to. They'd seen what was inside, and somehow the cold out here felt safer than the warmth in there. Noah rubbed a hand over his face. "I'm not putting you in danger," he murmured. "I don't care how tired we are. I don't care how hungry. I'd rather sleep on the sidewalk than in a place where people look at you like you're meat." Rex bumped his head against Noah's hand once, a tired but deliberate gesture. Noah half smiled. "Yeah," he said. "I know. You'd do the same for me." They kept walking. The sky was beginning to turn a faint blush of orange along the rooftops. It would be morning soon, and they still had nowhere to go. But they had one thing that wasn't broken. each other. And that somehow was enough to keep moving. The cold had numbed his feet. Not just the cold in the air, but the kind that crept inward, inch by inch, the kind that told a boy he didn't belong anywhere. Noah sat hunched at the base of a closed storefront, arms around his knees. Rex lay curled beside him, ribs rising in shallow rhythm. The dog's limp had worsened, though he didn't complain, didn't whine, just leaned his weight quietly against Noah, as if to say, "We'll get through this." But Noah wasn't so sure anymore. The burger wrapper from 2 nights ago was still in his pocket, empty, mocking. He closed his eyes. Maybe if he stayed still long enough, the world would forget he was here. Maybe being forgotten was easier than being reminded over and over that even your best choice could leave you shivering, stomach growling, in a city that looked the other way. Then, a scream, sharp, too close. A man's voice, panicked, ragged, tore through the still morning air like a crack of thunder. Noah jerked upright. Rex's ears shot up instantly, body tense. Another scream closer now. "Help! Somebody!" Noah didn't think. He ran. Shoes slapping wet pavement, blood pulsing in his ears. Rex followed, limping but fast. They turned a corner, ducked between dumpsters, and there, under the flicker of a dying street lamp, 3 silhouettes wrestled on the ground. A man was pinned against a delivery truck, his hands up. 2 figures in dark hoodies towered over him, one yanking at his coat, the other digging through his pockets with shaky hands. "Hey!" Noah shouted, skidding to a halt. The muggers snapped their heads around. "Back off!" one of them barked, stepping toward him. Noah's heart slammed against his ribs. His breath caught. He was 15. He had no weapon. And the only thing standing between him and a terrible mistake was a starving, limping dog. But still, he didn't move. "I said, leave him alone." The taller mugger pulled something from his coat. A knife, maybe, or a broken bottle. It flashed in the streetlight. "Get lost, kid." Noah's voice trembled. "No." Silence. Then, a low growl. Not from Noah, from Rex. It wasn't the whimper of pain Noah had heard in that alley days ago. It wasn't a warning either. It was a sound from somewhere deeper, from training, from instinct, from whatever place inside a dog remembers duty, even when the world forgets him. Rex stepped forward, teeth bared, shoulders squared despite the limp. The growl deepened, echoed. The muggers froze. The man on the ground took the chance, scrambled backward, panting hard, eyes wide. The taller thug hesitated. Rex barked a sharp, vicious snap that reverberated down the alley like a fired gun. And that was enough. They ran, gone before Noah could blink. Silence fell like snow. Noah's chest heaved. He turned toward Rex, whose body still trembled with adrenaline, eyes locked on the dark where the muggers vanished. "Easy," Noah whispered, stepping forward. "It's okay. It's over." Rex blinked. The growl faded. He took one slow step toward Noah and leaned into him, pressing his weight against the boy's thigh. Exhausted, loyal, unmoving. The man they saved leaned against the truck, clutching his chest. Gray-haired, sharp coat, blood on his lip. "Are you okay?" Noah asked. The man nodded shakily, staring at Rex like he'd seen a ghost. Where did you find that dog?" Noah paused. "He found me." The man lowered himself to the curb, still catching his breath. His eyes never left Rex. Something unreadable flickered there, recognition and disbelief. "You don't know what you have," he said quietly. Noah looked down at the German shepherd now sitting at his feet, ears twitching at every sound. "I think I do," Noah replied. And for the first time in days, he meant it. Noah didn't see the punch coming. He had shoved the man instinctively, barely a boy himself, skin taut with fear, blade in hand, just enough to knock him off balance. Just enough to say, "I won't stand here while you hurt someone." But a second later, a fist came down like a hammer. The world blurred sideways as Noah hit the wet concrete. Back first, elbow scraped, wind knocked out of him. He gasped, choking on rain and air and disbelief. His ribs screamed. The older man, the one they'd tried to save, shouted something, but it was lost in the chaos. The mugger stood over Noah, lips curled in contempt. "Should have minded your damn business." A foot lifted ready to strike. Noah flinched, braced, and then the night split open. A sound cut through the alley like thunder made of teeth. Rex. The growl wasn't just warning. It was ancient, ancestral, something bred into bone and muscle and memory. Not rage, not panic. Something controlled, precise, terrifying in its calm. The mugger turned just as 75 pounds of German shepherd launched through the air. But Rex didn't bite. He slammed his chest against the man's ribs, a full-body check that sent the attacker crashing sideways into a stack of recycling bins. Plastic and metal clanged like cymbals. Before the other could even react, Rex spun between them, planted himself square over Noah's sprawled frame, and snarled. His back was arched, hackles raised, fangs gleaming in the broken light. Every inch of him said, "Come one step closer, and I will remind you what fear tastes like." Noah, still on his back, could barely breathe. Not from pain now, but from awe. The same dog who had whimpered in an alley, the same dog who shared half a burger in silence, was now a wall of fury standing between him and the dark. The second mugger hesitated. One bark short, sharp, explosive froze him where he stood. Not a wild bark, a trained command, a line drawn in concrete. The man looked down at Noah, then at Rex, and ran. His partner didn't wait either. Together they vanished into the maze of alleyways like rats in retreat. Gone. The only sound left was Noah's shallow breathing and the soft hiss of rain on metal. Rex didn't move. Not yet. He stayed pressed over Noah, body rigid, eyes scanning the dark, every breath slow and measured, waiting, guarding, just like he had been taught once long ago before the hunger, before the streets. Noah reached up with a trembling hand and touched the side of Rex's neck. "Hey," he whispered. "It's okay. You did good. You did amazing." Rex didn't look down. He was still in protection mode, but slowly, as Noah's voice steadied something in the dog, loosened. The growl faded, the muscles eased, and then finally Rex turned his head and looked at Noah. That look again. Not wild, not feral, trained, focused, loyal, not just a stray. Someone's. Noah sat up with effort, wincing at the bruised spot on his ribs. He watched as Rex walked in a slow circle, checked the alley like a sentry, then returned and sat beside him, shoulder to shoulder. The man they'd saved, Victor, emerged from behind a delivery bin, eyes wide, chest heaving. He stared at the dog. That bark, that stance. Noah followed his gaze. "You okay?" Victor didn't answer immediately. He crouched beside Rex, hand out but not touching. "You're not just any dog, are you?" Rex stared at him but made no move. Victor shook his head. "God, I've seen that command. I've used it." He looked up at Noah. "Where did you find him?" "I told you," Noah said. "I didn't. He found me." Victor stood slowly, Rainwater ran off his coat. He's not just trained. He's a K-9, military or private. You don't fake that kind of discipline. Noah looked down at Rex, who now calmly sat like nothing had happened. Only the slight limp remained, as if reminding the world of the journey that brought him here. And then Noah said something he hadn't meant to say out loud. But he stayed. Victor looked over. What? He had every chance to run, back there, tonight. But he didn't. Noah met Rex's eyes. He stayed with me. Victor studied them both for a long moment, the boy with bruises on his cheek, the dog with ghosts in his eyes. Something shifted then, not in the rain, not in the city, but in possibility. The alley had fallen into a hush. The adrenaline was gone now, leaving behind a damp silence filled only by the dripping rain from overhangs, the hum of a distant street lamp, and the quiet wheeze of Victor Hawthorne's breath as he steadied himself against the rusted edge of a dumpster. Noah stood cautiously. Rex sat at his side like a sentry, calm now, but still watching. Victor didn't speak at first. He just looked at them. Really looked. A soaking wet teenager in threadbare layers, and a German shepherd with a scar over his flank and the posture of a soldier. Something in that picture didn't add up, not to anyone with eyes. But Victor didn't ask right away. He just exhaled, the kind of breath that leaves the lungs like it had been held for years. I owe you, he said simply. Noah blinked. You don't. Victor raised a brow. You shoved a man twice your size to stop a robbery. I just saw it happening. You saw it and you ran toward it. That matters. Victor stepped closer, careful not to startle Rex, though it was clear now this dog wasn't startled easily. He was trained to read people, and he was reading Victor now like an old book. Calm, alert, ready to protect. Victor held his hands loosely at his sides. His voice softened. I've spent the last 20 years hiring men to do what that dog just did, and I can count on one hand how many actually would. Noah looked down at Rex. The shepherd sat still, but his ears twitched, acknowledging something in the man's tone. Victor knelt slowly, as if approaching a memory. May I? He asked. Noah didn't answer, but Rex didn't growl, didn't back away, just sat tall, unmoving, and let the man come closer. Victor's hand hovered near the dog's neck, and then gently he brushed his fingers through the damp fur just below the collarbone. There, hidden in the tangled coat, beneath layers of mud and street grit, was a faint indentation. A tag ring, long gone, but the shape was unmistakable. A working dog's tag mount. Victor's breath caught. His eyes darted to Noah. Where did you find him? Noah shrugged. A week ago, in an alley. Looked like he hadn't eaten in days. And he just followed you? Noah hesitated, then nodded. Yeah. Victor leaned back on his heels, soaked to the bone but suddenly alert. I don't think you understand who this is. I don't care who he was, Noah said, voice suddenly sharper. He's not that anymore. Victor tilted his head. You mean he's yours now? I mean he's not anyone's property. That made Victor smile, an expression both pained and impressed. Noah lowered his eyes. He saved me too, not just tonight. Rex shifted slightly, resting one paw near Noah's foot. The gesture was small, but it spoke volumes. Victor stood. I'm Victor, he said, extending a hand. Noah looked at it like it might vanish if he blinked. After a second, he took it. Noah. Victor's grip was firm but not forceful. "And you are one hell of a kid, Noah." He looked down at Rex. "And you," he murmured as if remembering something long buried, "are more than a stray." Victor reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a soaked leather wallet. From it, he carefully slid a folded business card, edges wrinkled, ink a little smeared but still legible. Victor Hawthorne, CEO, Apex Protection Services. Noah looked at it like it was written in another language. "You run security?" "Private firm," Victor nodded. "Contracting. Former military. I've worked with dogs like him before." He paused. "Once, I owned one just like him." Noah's stomach clenched, not from hunger this time, but from something harder to name. "You think he's yours?" Victor shook his head. "No, not anymore." Then, softer, "But I think I knew him. Once." Rain started up again, light at first, then heavier. Victor pulled off his coat and draped it over Noah's shoulders without asking. "You're shivering." Noah stared, stunned. "I'm fine." "No, you're wet. There's a difference." Rex stood now, as if sensing the conversation had shifted again. His body pressed lightly against Noah's leg. Victor stepped back. "I know this is a lot, but if you ever need help or answers, I'd like to be part of that." Noah didn't reply. Not yet. But he didn't throw the card away either. Victor looked at Rex one last time. Something flickered across his face, nostalgia maybe, or grief, or something between. Then he nodded once. "Take care of each other." And with that, the man in the coat turned and disappeared into the fog, leaving behind two silhouettes in the rain. They met again in the pale hush of morning. Noah didn't know what compelled him to come back to the alley near 5th and Juniper, the place where it all began. But something told him Victor would be there. And he was. Leaning against a black SUV that looked far too polished for these back streets, Victor stood with a thermos in one hand, eyes trained on the empty sidewalk as though he'd been waiting for hours. When he saw Noah approaching, Rex trotting beside him, he didn't smile. Not quite. He just nodded, solemn, like something sacred had arrived. "Morning," Victor said. Noah adjusted his oversized hoodie, still damp at the cuffs. "I don't know why I came." "I think you do." Rex didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, not rushed, not anxious, but purposeful. His gait was stiff on the front left paw, still healing but steady, confident. Victor knelt slowly, the way a man does when he's approaching something he's lost and isn't sure he deserves to get back. The dog stopped a foot away, watched him, still, silent. Victor studied his face, every scar, every whisker, every faded patch of fur along the muzzle. His lips parted as though breathing out a truth he'd buried for too long. "Kaiser," he whispered. No command, no sharp tone, just a name, spoken like a prayer. The dog's ear twitched, then came the smallest movement, his tail, low and slow, wagging once. Victor's throat caught. "It is you," he said hoarsely. Noah didn't speak. He didn't move. He just watched. The space between them wasn't just air, it was memory, history. A battlefield neither of them could see, but both could feel. Victor reached out, palm upward. "Kaiser." For a moment, the dog didn't move. Then he stepped forward and pressed his nose gently into Victor's hand. Victor's breath broke. "Oh my God." He closed his eyes, and for a second the city faded. All that remained was a man on his knees and a dog who had once been something more, partner, comrade, perhaps even family. You disappeared. We thought—" he swallowed. "We thought you were gone." Noah finally spoke quietly. "He almost was." Victor looked up, his eyes brimming but steady. "Where did you find him again?" "In an alley. A week ago. Starving, barely breathing." Victor nodded like it made sense. Like this city had a way of swallowing even its heroes. "I trained him myself," Victor said, "since he was 6 months old. We went through hell together. Riots, raids, rescue missions in places no one else would go." He laughed softly, bitterly. "And then one night, someone broke into the van, stole supplies. He was in the back crate. Gone by morning." Noah felt a cold weight in his chest. "And no one found him?" Victor shook his head. "No chip. His collar had been removed. We searched, posted, reported, for months." He looked back at the dog at Rex, no, Kaiser, and his voice thickened. "He wasn't just a dog. He was—" He stopped, started again. "He was the only thing that made me believe in loyalty after losing my brother." A silence fell. Then Rex Kaiser walked back toward Noah and sat by his feet. Victor stared, confused. Noah didn't flinch. He just reached down and gently brushed the dog's head. Victor's lips parted. "He still remembers me. But he chose you." Noah looked down. "I didn't ask him to." "I know." Another long pause. Victor stood slowly brushing his coat clean. "You've taken care of him, better than most people would." "I just shared a burger." Victor chuckled, a real tired laugh this time. "Funny," he said. "That's how I first got him to trust me, too." The two of them stood in the golden hush of morning, one man older, worn with 100 past missions under his belt, the other, barely grown, carrying silent wars of his own, and in between them, a dog who'd survived both. Victor exhaled. "Whatever name you gave him, he'll answer to now. He knows." "I called him Rex." Victor nodded slowly. "It fits." Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something else small, metal, and worn. A tag. "Kaiser, Apex K9 Unit Num 0147. Do not separate from handler." He held it out. Noah didn't take it, just looked. "Maybe," Victor said, voice quiet. "It belongs to both of you now." The tag caught the light. Rex Kaiser lifted his head, tail giving one small thump against the concrete. The morning broke in silence. But something had changed. The past had found its way home. And the future waited. The coffee sat untouched in Victor's hand. Rain traced lazy lines down the diner's fogged windows. Inside it was quiet. Just 2 graveyard workers at the far booth, and them. Noah clutched a chipped cocoa mug he hadn't asked for. Rex Kaiser lay between them, chin resting on Noah's boot. "I used to come here after shifts," Victor said. "Just me and him. Before everything changed." Noah waited. Victor met his eyes. "You want the full truth?" Noah nodded. "He wasn't just mine. He was my partner, my anchor." Victor's fingers tapped the cup. "Kaiser joined the Apex K9 unit before he turned 1. High drive. Intuitive. He felt danger before it arrived." Victor stared into the fog. "We deployed during the South Point riots. He once pulled me from a collapsing building. There's still glass in my leg from that night." He exhaled. 3 years ago, I stopped for gas. Left him in the van like always. 2 minutes later, the back door was forced open. Gear gone. Crate empty. Noah leaned in. I searched everywhere. Shelters, police, nothing. They said he was dead or sold. Victor looked at Rex. But I couldn't believe that. Not with him. Rex's tail flicked barely. He was all I had left after losing my brother in Kandahar. He wasn't just a dog, he was family. Noah swallowed. Victor continued. I couldn't go back after that. Every hallway reminded me of him. Every silence. He glanced at Noah. But now he's here, and he remembered me. But he didn't leave me, Noah said. Victor looked up, surprised, then nodded. I noticed. He studied the boy too thin, too old for his age, patched up sleeves, shoes held by duct tape, and in his eyes, wait. You took care of him, Victor said softly. Noah whispered, he took care of me too. Victor pulled out a photo young Kaiser beside a soot-covered Victor, vest labeled K9 Apex, Kaiser. Noah traced the dog's shape. He looks the same. He is, Victor said. Just older, like the rest of us. Victor stood. I came to take him home, but now I wonder. Maybe he already is. On the rooftop parking lot, the city glowed below in amber haze. Wind brushed through Rex's fur. Victor knelt, a reverent gesture. Kaiser, he called softly. It's me. Rex's ears twitched. Kaiser, partner. Do you remember? The dog stepped forward. Once, twice. Close enough to smell the man's breath. Victor reached out. You did your duty. You found your way home. But Rex turned away and returned deliberately to Noah's side. Victor froze. Rex sat. Loyal, still. He always came when I called, Victor whispered. Noah didn't move. Maybe it wasn't obedience, Victor added. Maybe it was trust. He looked at Noah. He remembered me. But he chose you. I didn't mean to take him, Noah said quietly. I know. That's why it matters. The silence thickened, but not in tension, in understanding. Victor said, watching him leave again hurts more than losing him the first time. But he's not just Kaiser anymore, he's also Rex now, yours. Noah blinked. Come by tomorrow, Victor added. We'll figure out what that means. And he walked away. Rex watched the car disappear, then turned to Noah, and stayed. The knock came at 6:43 a.m. Victor opened the door, coffee in hand. A rain-soaked boy stood there. Beside him, a German shepherd, calm and steady. You came, Victor said. You said we should. Victor stepped back. Then, come in. Noah hovered inside, unsure if he belonged. Rex walked in, sniffed once, then lay by the rug like he'd always been there. You're not in trouble, Victor said gently. I just never been inside something like this, Noah murmured. You want breakfast? Noah hesitated. Victor took it as a yes. Soon the kitchen filled with the scent of eggs and toast. Rex lay across the threshold, paws crossed. Noah ate slowly, carefully, like it might disappear if he rushed. Victor watched, then asked, He stayed with you last night, didn't he? Noah nodded. I didn't ask him to. Victor smiled. Exactly. You didn't need to. After a pause, Victor leaned in. You know what I thought about last night? Noah looked up. Victor nodded toward Rex. Maybe it's my turn now. To choose. To choose what? Victor's voice softened. To choose you. Noah stared. Victor continued. You lost a home. I lost a partner. Maybe you two found each other for a reason. Noah looked at Rex. The dog wagged once. Victor stood. You don't have to stay. No pressure. But if you want, the guest room's yours. Noah's hands tensed. No chores, no speeches, just safety. And one condition. What? Rex gets the couch, not the bed. Noah chuckled, surprising even himself. Rex wagged harder. Victor leaned back. You've survived so long, kid. Maybe it's time to try something else. Noah looked around the quiet, the warmth, the smell of wood polish and dog fur. I don't know how to live in a place like this. You don't have to, Victor said. Just don't run from it. Noah took a breath. Okay. Victor smiled. And that was enough. The door creaked open like it knew this wasn't just another room, it was a moment long overdue. Noah stood still at the threshold. His backpack sagged off his shoulder, his eyes wide. Rex stepped in first, nose twitching, ears alert. He circled once, then lay down at the foot of the bed as if to say, it's safe. Noah stayed frozen. It wasn't a big room, but it felt massive to him. A real bed, neatly made, a lamp casting warm light, a photo of a working dog, Kaiser, always on watch. A folded hoodie and clean socks beside the bed. Not bleach-scented, not institutional. It hit him. No rows of cots, no buzzing lights, no shouting intercoms. This wasn't survival. It was his. He stepped inside. The carpet softened under his feet. He didn't even remember kicking his shoes off. He just knew warmth met him at every step. Sitting on the bed, he touched the pillow, the navy comforter, and something inside him nearly cracked. Behind him, Rex exhaled and curled tighter. Noah lay back. The ceiling was clean. The silence wasn't hollow. It was gentle. He slept. Sometime in the night he woke to warmth. Real, steady warmth. No fear. No shouting. No slamming doors. Just breathing. He turned. Rex lay by the bed, eyes half open, tail flicking once. You stayed, Noah whispered. Rex didn't move, but something in his gaze said, Of course I did. Noah reached down, brushing the fur behind Rex's ears. He didn't feel bones this time. Rex had begun to fill out again, like healing had started for both of them. You think this is real? Noah asked softly. Rex's tail thumped once. That was enough. Morning sunlight spilled through the blinds. Noah blinked, sat up. The bed was still there. The room, the quiet. It hadn't vanished. Rex stirred. His tail brushed the floor. Morning, Noah murmured. A knock at the door. It's just me, said Victor. Can I come in? Yeah, okay. Victor entered with 2 mugs, one with a cartoon dog. Noah smirked. Hot chocolate okay? Victor asked. Noah nodded. Thanks. I don't usually get offered either. They sat in silence, sipping. Rex lay between them. Then, Why did you run toward that man in the alley? Victor asked. Noah looked down. He was screaming. No one else moved. Victor nodded. Most people freeze, or hope someone else helps. But you? No badge? No backup? Just you and a dog who barely trusted anyone? Noah said nothing. Victor leaned in. You didn't do it for praise. You did it because someone needed help. Noah swallowed. It was stupid. It was brave. Their eyes met. "I'm not offering charity," Victor said. "I'm offering investment. In you." Victor pulled a tablet from the desk, opened to a school re-enrollment form. "There's a program nearby," he explained. "Counselors, tutors, they'll help if you want it." Noah's hands stayed in his lap. "You don't have to decide now," Victor added. "But this is where you get to want something again." Noah glanced at the form. "I haven't thought about school in forever." "I know. I used to get in trouble for sleeping in class," he muttered. "They thought I was lazy." "I believe you." Noah's throat clenched. "I didn't think anyone would." Victor crouched down, level with him. "I'm not here to save you, Noah. You already did the hard part. You stayed kind." He pointed to the tablet. "This isn't a handout. This is a door. You get to choose if you walk through." Behind them, Rex gave a quiet huff. Noah nodded, small but real. Later, Noah sat at the kitchen table, enrollment packet open like a pop quiz on being human. He scrawled, "Noah L." Paused, then smiled faintly and added, "Noah R.L. R for Rex." He looked down. Rex was at his feet, head on Noah's shoe, paw pressed gently across the top. The next line, parent or guardian. Noah hesitated, then wrote, "Victor Hawthorne." "Temporary, I guess." He shook his head. "Victor wouldn't like that word. Temporary." "The next, emergency contact," he wrote, then crossed it out. Started again. "Victor H. and Rex, if dogs count." He smiled. For real. Then came the big one. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Noah froze. That question had always been a joke, or a trap. He looked at Rex. "Remember that night in the alley?" he whispered. "You were just bones. But your eyes said you still wanted to try." He stared at the empty line. "I think I want to help others feel that too, that they can still try." He wrote, "Someone who doesn't walk past." He didn't wipe the tears that came next, because no one was judging. Just a dog, and a house that hadn't closed its door. Victor reappeared. "Everything okay?" Noah nodded, pushed the form forward. "Finished." Victor scanned it. "That's the best answer I've seen in a long time." "It's probably not what they're looking for," Noah said. Victor smiled. "It's exactly what the world needs." They looked at Rex. His paw still rested on Noah's foot. Victor added softly, "Dogs don't stay with people who lie to themselves. They stay when they see something true." Noah didn't answer. He just laid his hand gently over Rex's paw. Outside, the breeze moved the trees. Inside, everything settled. A boy, a dog, and a man who believed in both, and a form that no longer asked who Noah had been, but who he might become. The alarm buzzed. Noah flinched, not from the sound, but from what it meant. Routine. A life not meant for kids like him. He sat up. The sheets were still smooth. He hadn't moved much, too afraid of wrinkling what wasn't his. The room smelled like soap, not concrete or mildew, just clean, too clean. Rex stirred on the rug. The old German shepherd blinked once and thumped his tail. No bark, no orders, just presence. The clothes folded last night lay untouched. Khakis, sweater, collared shirt. They looked like they belonged to a kid with a lunchbox and a bedtime story. Not him. Downstairs, Victor was on the phone. Logistics. Asset rotation. words Noah didn't understand and didn't need to. He moved through the hallway like a guest, washed his face in warm water because he could. The mirror stared back, the same boy who knew how to disappear. But Rex hadn't. When Noah stepped out, Rex followed. Quiet, loyal, no leash needed. In the kitchen, Victor smiled mid-call and pointed at a piece of toast. "For you," he mouthed. Noah reached for it, burned his fingers, muttered, "Ow!" Rex's ears perked. Victor chuckled and turned away. At the table, Noah chewed silently, hand resting on Rex's head like a lifeline. He couldn't explain the ache in his chest, the ache of not being yelled at, of kindness that felt like it came with an expiration date. Victor returned. "Want some orange juice?" Noah froze. He wasn't used to being asked. "Sure," he whispered. Victor nodded. "Rex already ate. Left you some crumbs, though. He's generous like that." Noah smiled. "He's the best part of me." Victor didn't miss a beat. "Then you've got more good in you than you think." Later, the morning passed in fragments combing hair, holding a backpack that didn't belong to someone else, pausing at the front door. When Noah hesitated, Rex nudged his calf. Just once. Just enough. They stood on the sidewalk waiting for the school van. The wind was crisp, not cruel. Victor joined them. "You don't have to do everything perfectly," he said. "Just show up." Noah stared down at Rex. "It feels wrong to leave him." "He'll be here when you get back," Victor promised. "You'll see." As the van pulled up, Noah climbed in slowly. He looked back. Rex watched. No bark, no fuss. And Noah understood. Trust doesn't shout. It stays. That night, the panic returned. A siren in his memory. Not real, but it didn't matter. Red lights, smoke, slamming doors, running too slow. He woke, gasping. The house was quiet, too clean, too still. He stumbled into the hallway, breath shallow, chest tight. Then soft nails on wood. Rex. The dog padded over and sat, calm and close. Noah collapsed beside him, fingers gripping his fur. His cheek pressed against Rex's side. The dog didn't move, just let the boy breathe. For the first time, Noah weathered the storm without hiding. Victor woke to silence, but not the peaceful kind. The kind that felt like something had broken loose. He found them in the hallway. Noah curled tight around Rex. Rex, unmoving, eyes calm, present. Victor didn't speak. He just watched. After a while, Noah's breath slowed. Victor placed a blanket beside them and returned to his room. Some moments aren't meant to be fixed. By dawn, golden light slid across the floor. Rex's head rested on Noah's hip. Victor didn't see a rescue anymore. He saw a reunion. At school, the gate loomed, too big, too final. Noah knelt beside Rex. "Stay here, okay? Just for a few hours." Rex didn't move, just watched. Noah turned and walked in. Didn't look back. But Rex didn't need him to. Inside, the hall smelled like pencil shavings and bleach. His new teacher didn't ask him to speak, just nodded. By lunch, Noah hadn't said much, and no one pushed him to. That was okay, because Rex was still outside. Not tethered by leash, just faith. Noah remembered a night under a bus stop when he'd split a burger in two, when bones poked through Rex's fur, when a dog looked at a boy and decided he was worth it. Now, that same dog waited at a school gate, while Noah, who once had nothing, held a pencil in a classroom and wrote the first page of a new life. When the final bell rang, Noah didn't run. He walked. And there he was, Rex, still, steady, waiting like time itself hadn't moved. Noah crouched. Rex's tail thumped once. He leaned into Noah's chest like punctuation at the end of a sentence. "He's not just my dog," Noah whispered. A pause. "He's proof I made it." Victor's car pulled up. "How was it?" he asked as Noah opened the back door for Rex first. "I survived," Noah answered. Victor smiled. "That's usually how it starts." Rex settled beside the backpack. Noah looked once more at the school. Today, it hadn't pushed him away. Today, it let him try. And sometimes, that's all a second chance needs. It wasn't raining this time. No thunder, no wind, no biting cold that settled into bone. Just the soft hush of city life slowing down at dusk, cars rolling by like tired sighs, a streetlight flickering above, and the rustling of a few leaves stirred by the September breeze. Noah stood still at the edge of the sidewalk, hands in his hoodie pocket. His breath no longer fogged the air. His backpack clean, patched once near the zipper sat beside him, and just a few feet ahead, the old bus shelter. Exactly as they'd left it. The bench was still crooked. The light above still flickered in irregular pulses like a heartbeat too tired to beat properly. And the corner of the shelter where two cracked walls met still held the memory of a night that had changed everything. Rex sat quietly by his side. No leash, no command, just presence. Noah stepped forward slowly, the soles of his shoes brushing against the same wet concrete where, not long ago, he had crouched with a half-eaten burger and a decision to make. He knelt again now, but not because he had to, because it felt right. From the paper bag he carried, he pulled out a warm cheeseburger, still in its wrapper, still steaming faintly through the waxy paper. He unwrapped it carefully. Then, without ceremony, he placed it gently downright in the corner. Just like last time. Only now, it wasn't for him. And it wasn't for Rex. It was for the one who hadn't come yet. "For the next one," he whispered. Rex didn't move, but his ears tilted, watching. Noah glanced sideways, his voice catching just a little. "You remember, right?" He smiled without showing teeth. "You were barely breathing. I was barely standing. And somehow, we both made room." The wind pushed past gently, lifting the edge of the burger wrapper. It flapped once, settled again. Noah sat down on the crooked bench. It creaked under his weight, the same way it did the first time. But now, he was heavier, stronger, not from food, but from something else, from having someone. Rex padded over and rested his head on Noah's knee. For a long while they didn't speak, didn't move. They just listened to the sounds of the street, the distant voice of a radio playing from an open window, the hum of life going on around them, and the quiet space between heartbeats that only those who've been forgotten can hear. "Maybe someone else will find it," Noah murmured, eyes on the untouched burger. "Maybe they'll think it's trash," he shrugged. "Or maybe they'll be just hungry enough to hope." His voice dropped lower. "I think that's what we were that night. Not broken, just hungry enough to still hope." Rex gave a soft, short huff. Noah reached down and scratched the spot behind his ear the way he always did. "Come on," he said gently. We've got a home now." But before standing, he looked one last time at the burger and whispered, "Whoever you are, I hope this is your turning point too." Then he stood and walked away. Rex followed, but neither of them looked back, because some goodbyes don't need to be spoken. They're left behind, quiet, simple, and wrapped in paper on a cold bench, waiting for the next heart brave enough to believe. The community center wasn't fancy. Folding chairs, string lights, plastic cups filled with watered-down punch. But to Noah, it felt like standing on a stage at Madison Square Garden. Not because of the crowd, it was mostly kids his age or younger, some teachers, a few curious parents. Not even because of the microphone. He wasn't used to speaking into anything that didn't buzz back or echo like a hallway. But because of what he was about to say. His hand shook a little as he adjusted the mic. Rex, no. Kaiser sat off to the side, alert, calm, regal in a way only German shepherds could pull off. He always seemed to know when it mattered, and tonight mattered. Noah took a breath, then another, and then, "I didn't grow up with a lot of things," he said. "No bedtime stories, no packed lunches, no someone's waiting at home for you." A few quiet chuckles from the kids, more than a few nods from the adults. "But I did grow up with questions, like, why me? And what now?" He looked at his shoes, then at Rex, and for a long time the answers were silence. He swallowed hard. Until one night, I met someone. Well, he didn't have a name, not at first. He was just bones and eyes in an alley, but something about him stayed. He smiled, small, honest. I gave him half a burger, and he gave me everything else. A pause. We named him Rex, but later we found out his real name was Kaiser. Whispers stirred through the crowd. Rex's ears flicked, listening. He used to be a police dog, trained, disciplined, brave. Then he disappeared, just vanished during a robbery. He turned to the audience, scanning the rows. They thought he was dead, but he was just waiting. Like me. Another pause. This one longer. I think we were both stuck in a place between who we used to be and who we could be next. Noah's voice trembled slightly, but he didn't stop. People say dogs can't choose, that they're loyal to whoever feeds them. But I don't believe that anymore. He glanced at Rex. He chose me, even when I had nothing, even when I wasn't someone worth choosing. Silence filled the room, a thick, full silence, the kind that makes you feel every word still hanging in the air. They asked me to talk about second chances tonight, but the truth is, sometimes the second chance isn't a what, it's a who. He let the sentence land, then added softly, his real name was Kaiser, but to me, he's just the one who stayed. A beat. And then, and I guess, I stayed too. Applause didn't erupt. It grew, slow, real, moved, like something heavy being lifted, row by row. Noah stepped back. Rex rose and trotted to him without needing a call. He rested his chin on Noah's hand. And together they stood in front of a room that finally understood. This wasn't a speech. It was a shared story of a boy, a dog, 2 names, and the miracle of being seen. The sky was doing that quiet thing again, that gentle fade from gold to violet, like the whole world was exhaling in slow motion. Out on the porch, the boards creaked beneath Noah's socked feet. The air held the aftertaste of dusk-grilled food from a neighbor's yard, far off traffic, and something softer, like the promise of a safe night. Rex, no. Kaiser lay beside him, eyes half-lidded, ears relaxed, but still alert. His fur shimmered under the porch light, a little grayer now around the muzzle, but somehow he looked younger in peace than he ever did in fear. Noah unwrapped the sandwich in his lap. Turkey and cheese, cheap stuff, but warm, real. He tore it down the middle, the way he always did, and just like every time before, Rex waited. No pawing, no whining, just eyes that trusted the moment. Noah handed over the bigger half. "You always take it so gently," he murmured, watching as Rex mouthed the bread with slow, reverent care. "Like it's holy." Rex's tail gave one small thump against the porch. Just once, like a nod. Noah leaned back on his elbows, sandwich in hand, staring up at the stars as they flickered into place. Tiny lanterns hung on invisible threads. "We've come a long way, huh?" He didn't say it loudly. He didn't need to. Rex shifted closer, his side touching Noah's. The weight was grounding, familiar. The kind of closeness that says, "You're not alone anymore," without having to be louder than the crickets. Noah took a bite, chewed, swallowed, let the silence fill the spaces inside him that used to echo. He thought about the alley, the first night. That sound a whimper, not quite pain, not quite plea, the half-burger, the wet coat against his side as they curled together behind a dumpster. And he thought about the orphanage, the ultimatum, his own voice shaky but sure saying, "I choose him." He thought about sleeping in parks, about limping, about watching Rex limp too. And then he thought about Victor. The invitation, the clean sheets, the school form that asked, "What do you want to be?" and didn't laugh when he didn't know. He looked down at Rex again. "I think you saved me before I even knew I was drowning," he said softly. Rex licked a crumb from the corner of his mouth, then rested his chin on Noah's thigh. A sigh escaped him, deep, content, final. Noah's hand settled on his back, running along the ridges of scar and fur. The dog didn't flinch. Neither of them did anymore. "I used to think being soft meant being weak," Noah said. "That if you wanted to survive, you had to keep your hands closed. Your heart, too." A pause, then quiet, firm. "But that night, when I gave you half my dinner, I think that was the strongest I ever was." He set the crust of the sandwich on the railing. Neither of them reached for it, because the hunger was gone now, replaced by something heavier and better. He looked out at the stars again. No neon signs, no shouting, no thunder. Just this: the boy who once had nothing, and the dog who once had no one, side by side, full bellies, still hearts. Noah exhaled. "Kindness isn't weakness," he whispered. "It's what saves us." Rex's tail thumped twice, and somewhere, across the quiet stretch of sky, another boy, maybe another dog, was waiting to be found. In a world that often rushes past the quiet moments, this story reminds us of the power of one small act of kindness. A half-eaten sandwich, a look of trust, a choice to stay. Noah and Rex, two souls forgotten by the world, found each other not through grand gestures, but through shared silence, sacrifice, and unwavering loyalty. Their bond wasn't built on words, but on presence, on choosing each other again and again. German shepherds are known for their strength, intelligence, and courage. But it's their loyalty, deep, instinctive, unshakable, that makes them unforgettable. Rex wasn't just a lost police dog. He was proof that healing can walk on four legs, and sometimes family doesn't come from blood. It comes from rescue. To everyone who's ever opened their heart to an animal in need, to every dog who's waited at a door that never opened again, let this story be a reminder. Kindness is never wasted. Love is never lost. And second chances can begin with just one small choice. Share this if you believe that sometimes it's the ones with fur who teach us how to be human.